people involved, getting to know your data. There's data literacy is a big part of that, because we forget that not everybody in the organizations looks at the data the same way, right? I think so. From our industry and the company where we are, I think data literacy was very important for us, getting to understand the people what is insights to actions, right? What is data? What's the added value from the data? People are so used to using it as a transactional way, right? You go into any ERP systems, you create a sales orders, you do that. It's difficult for people to fathom, majority of us, that what is happening behind the scenes, how much powerful that information is that can help you in different things, right? So I think that's the starting point is data literacy, and then bringing the right people on board. Coming back to what Sebastian said, bringing business users. You have a group of data scientists, which is great, but you need to bring the value that the business users who are going to be actually experts, who are going to see the value and help you in scale. You can't go to the whole organization. You're always working with a core team of experts, but then the scalability and what governance structure you put around it, right? How do you manage that? I think to me, that's the baby steps that organizations have to take. You can go from point A to point Z, to speed up the process, but you might lose the organization and the value drivers in that. You may say, look, we've implemented this great AI tool, but if it's not used by the organization, then it's an effort wasted, right? So to me, I think back to basics is where where we are doing right now. Yeah.
I would also say, for me, it's really, you have to decide on a very good tech stack. So because that's a very important long-term decision on how you run kind of analytics software, how it gets supported, how you can scale it. So it's quite important that you build up your tech stack in a way that fits to the scheme for us, like the bank is working, and then you can go into that and scale your use cases into that. And if you change that too often, then that will kind of create confusion, and it also creates a lot of overhead, because for all of those tech stacks, you have to develop the methods on how you build use cases, how you deploy them, and how you develop them, and how you do actual analytics in them. And so for me, that's really focusing on a good tech stack. I think it's, for me, the first real step. Yeah.
Well, let me summarize. So from Usha, one of the important points that you mentioned is about data literacy. So actually, like, bringing everybody on the same table, understanding, okay, these are data, what's the story behind it, and also align on the process of reading those data and acting based on that. And what you, Thomas, mentioned is about tech stacks. So another practical challenge that many companies face is you have a tech stack, and then in 5 years it doesn't work. It doesn't have all that you need to have. You need to migrate, but then that migration comes with a lot of cost, with a lot of overhead, a lot of resistance from people. Probably they have used to work with the system, and now they need to go and learn a new system. Jüri, you wanted to add something on that?
Yeah, so I found those kind of points very interesting, and so just from the data literacy perspective, I think that, yeah, change management is definitely, let's say, a practical challenge, because, like, how do you do that for an organization of, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000, or even 100,000 people? Then secondly, like, I think that in this context, it's also important to maybe cultivate a culture of change, where you don't really accept the status quo as a company, because at the end of the day, culture drives companies, not, let's say, individuals or silos or whatever groups. So, like, I think for many leaders, the challenge is, like, how do you kind of, let's say, maybe transform even the culture for traditional companies. When talking about tech stacks, I found this also very interesting, because I think that what is important to kind of take into account is the philosophy of the tech stack, like, in a much bigger degree than the technologies itself. Because, for example, Fivetran fits into what we call a modern data stack, right? And the good thing about the modern data stack is that data warehouses or data integration solutions or BI layers, they're all very modular because you can more or less kind of switch them for one or another. So I think that when we're speaking about tech stacks, I think that the modularity is like really key of having long-term success, especially like as technology becomes older and older. And I think that also like one last risk that I would kind of foresee for like many of the customers that we work with is that when you, for example, increase efficiency and when you automate lots of things, we had, for example, many customers in the US, like the likes of New Relic, who were pulling data from lots of databases, but also SaaS-based applications, where they had a team of data engineers managing all of those workloads. And with Fivetran, they were just able to automate everything, where they didn't need to invest the time of, let's say, 4 or 5 people. Like, what do you do with those folks? And so we had like those such customers, as well as others who have moved data engineers into data science functions. And the kind of, this is again coming back to the culture of change, like how quickly you are able to adapt as an organization. So yeah, these are a couple of things that I've picked up from my current role and previous ones as well. Yeah.
So I need to be aware of time. We have 4 minutes left before the next talk. So actually, I would give time to Mohsen and also audiences if there is a question.
Thanks a lot. There is long time a question waiting. If Martin can switch on the camera to raise the question to explain for who it is. Martin back. Thank you.
Hey guys, yeah, me again. I do have a quick question for all the participants. So especially, I think banking and telco do have a lot of data, and we were discussing value of data earlier today as well. You were talking about transforming existing business models. How do you actually go about adding on to these business models? So creating new services out of data, combining, joining forces with other companies, etc. How do you go about that?
So maybe I start. So I think for sure that's always something that we evaluate. Yeah. So where you identify potential new sales channels that could be supported by data analytics. So I think that's something that we always do. Yeah, because it's part of the business development. But also on a maybe cost side, in terms of how we work together with startups and other businesses to replace certain parts of our processes where we don't want to do kind of the in-depth analytics on our own. Yeah, so I think that's a balance between where we say, okay, that's the focus where we really go in-depth. That's our core value, our core analytics that we do where we are good in, and then you have both on a corporation on the sales side, but also on making business processes more lean, different stakeholders and other companies where we have a cooperation and where we want to get the best customer journey out of it at the end.
I would recommend to basically put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Like when you try to join forces with someone else, imagine what would the customer want to do, what's the value you can bring. Then when you guide your collaborations and like whatever you want to do by the value you're like trying to leverage with the customer, that's I think the guiding part. Because agreeing with the previous points, technology is usually then not the biggest issue. It's about like how you want to realize it together with the partner and what are the individual steps you're taking. And that means not just focusing on the simple, let's say, short-term things, but also putting yourself in the shoes like when thinking about high-value bets, long high-value initiatives to be done. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Always, the customer always has to be in the focus. And for us, the answer to your question, Martin, would be we're doing twofolds. You probably know that I'm leading all the consumer space. So here, of course, we're not just only transforming existing business models, but also working outside our core, if that makes sense. And this is, of course, hand in hand with our products and services teams and supporting this with data and AI. And then on the other side of the company, on the business side, of course, there are exciting new data products And there are also data for social good initiatives where we are building data products when they are needed, for instance, in the COVID topic, in the malaria topic, to mention only some of them.
Thanks a lot, because time is over and we have Patrick already on top of my head for the next presentation. I wanted to thank you so much for this incredible interactive panel discussion. Are you ready to finalize it now? We are done.
Thanks. I would like to just thank our panelists for their contribution to this discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for being
Very
here.
much.
Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You can just
Bye-bye.
switch on the
Bye-bye.
cameras. Thanks a lot. Patrick, I'm not taking your time. So Patrick, the camera is on. I can see you. My colleagues are putting you on the screen as well now. And if you can share